Hi, hello everyone. Right, so I think we're at the right number to be more loose. I think we're all allowed to unmute. Just want to check. So this is our first time trying a community call with a lot of people. Um, Okay, sorry about that. I yeah, we are. Everyone's free to enable their mic and their video. So that will be fun because I think if anyone here was in the conference, so yeah, we didn't have much video going on just because of the technical limitations. But then, so we're trying to like see more of you guys in our community call. Right. So how many people do we have now? All right. So this video will be recorded and it's live streamed on YouTube as well. So if anyone is not comfortable with that, just let me know and we will see what we can do. But then yeah, we are currently live on YouTube right now. So if you know anyone who wants to join via dial in, it's also available on the agenda document. So right now the agenda document will be our guide to um, proceed in this call. And then I will just walk you through what's in the document on what you can fill out throughout the call. So at the last part, we have their shout out. So if you want to recognize any community member who helped you, so feel free to fill it out. And if you have anything to share, you can also add it in, and we can also talk about that as part of our agenda. And if you have any questions, so you can pre-fill this now, or because we're in a very manageable number, you can also just use Zoom to put in your questions. So I think that would work. So we have here our roll call. So if you're comfortable with sharing some details about you there, so your name and your forum username, or just your forum username, you can share it there so that we can put some faces on the people we've seen in the forum. And you can also add where you live. So I will set an example. And oh, by the way, we have a couple of people from Tribe 29 here as well with us. So how about wave if you're from Tribe 29? If you're yes, there are those people. Nice. Okay. Right. So just to give some background about community calls, so is is there anyone with us who is familiar with community calls? Like maybe you're part of an open source project or an open source community and you have joined one. So just say like this, or you can let us know in the chat. But then what community call is about is giving updates. Oh, hi, Oscar. Welcome.
Hey, Faye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So giving updates on what's happening and the community and the product right now. So we like this format. We prefer this format because other than we have a lot of positive feedback about this during the conference, we think that it's a nice way for us to catch up, even though we're from different places. So we think that, okay, I will have to mute Oscar. Sorry about that. So this is a good way for us to like see who are we talking to in the forum, and yeah, just also get to know each other while talking about stuff around our community. Right. Uh-huh. Some people are writing on the roll call. So yeah, for those who just joined, I am in the agenda document. So this will be our guide in and how we proceed with this call. So I think I will also paste the link for that just in case anyone is missing the link. Right. Also there. Okay. So Wait, okay, we have 18. Right. So let's get started with our agenda. So we set our community call for today because it's our feature pack 2 will be released today. So expect it anytime soon. And we're gonna talk about it in this community call. So I think everyone's aware that we started the feature pack releases, I think starting last February, so starting this year, to give more updates on Checkmk. So instead of like waiting for the big bunch of updates on the new version, so we introduced the feature pack to introduce new features that you can optionally use. So we have here today Wontek. So Wontek, are you ready to talk about the Prometheus integration?
Yes, sure. So I talk about the Prometheus integration. I have to excuse myself because I have some occasional hiccups at the moment. Bit spontaneous, but hopefully that should be fine. Shall I go through the integration itself now? Okay. So let me just quickly share my screen so this becomes more interesting for you guys. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. If you have any questions in between, maybe fake and moderators, so you can maybe just type it in the chatting. Okay. Well, so yes. So with the feature pack 2, there's also this Prometheus integration suite in there. So basically what you can do is you can connect your Prometheus instance, which are, for example, on my localhost here. And then to this one, I have my node exporter connected. And then using the data source programs in here, you can see this new special agent rule, which you can configure, which I've already done to collect some more data. But basically, for example, for my localhost Prometheus, I have to specify the TCP port number and then specify which exporters I've connected to it. And then I can select information I'll be most interested to get information from. And then once you've done this, you can see all the generated services. So basically what is happening here is Checkmk connects to your Prometheus instance. Then through the Prometheus RP, it gets all this information to Checkmk, and then processes it and then generates these Checkmk services. The interesting thing here is if you're familiar with Prometheus, you know that most of the metrics are simple, let's say byte metrics, for example. So they're just raw numbers. But in Checkmk, you're used to have a bit more context to these raw values. And this is what we can see here. So for example, if we look at the memory check, it looks very similar to the memory check which you have when you have the Checkmk agent installed. So to all these metrics you get, you always have a context to them. So for example, for the RAM, you can see how much is used out of the total. So it's never just a single value to itself. And then with the feature pack, we support in the beginning 3 exporters. Let me just go back to this one. And then so basically you have 3 exporters in the beginning, which is the C advisor, the kubestate metrics, and the node exporter. So for these ones, we fully support them with Checkmk check plugins. And then for each exporter, it's slightly different as well. So depending on the exporter or the nature of the exporter, you can configure specific options to it. And then I'm going to abort this one, go back to the host. And for example, I have set up the C advisor for another Prometheus instance. And then for this one, you can generate different piggyback hosts. And then for each piggyback host, which represents one container at the moment, you can get specific information, which is very similar to the CAdvisor from Kubernetes in itself already. Yes, and then some people were probably there also at the conference. So maybe it would be more interesting if you want to see something specific or have any particular questions, you can just ask them right now. It's a bit more quiet. Okay, maybe I can ask a different question. Is there anyone from here who uses Prometheus or has used Prometheus?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Yes.
No, Maras was.
Yes, I have a Prometheus instance running.
Mm-hmm.
And one question, do you have any knowledge how the performance of the integration is? So is it better to have the node exporter running on a system than a Checkmk agent, or is it only a shift of resources? So do you have any
It's kind of obviously, yes, it's a good comparison. So for example, you should expect the same values for both of them. So for example, if you, you should expect them, but they're slightly different because the node exporter basically scrapes the information from the different files and everything, and then passes them onto the Prometheus. So it scrapes them once and then puts them into Prometheus, and then Checkmk gets this information through the RP. While with the Checkmk agent, it scrapes them in an interval, let's say, in an interval which you have basically defined. But so when you go through the Prometheus special agent, there's this kind of like, let's say it's a 2 times interval. So once from Prometheus, when he gets all the information from the nodes exporter, and then Checkmk scrapes this information from Prometheus, and then compared to just one interval with just the Checkmk agent. So it's slightly different.
So I have more delay if I use the node exporter. The delay between Prometheus and the node exporter instance, and then the delay between Checkmk and the Prometheus.
Right, yes. So theoretically, it would be possible to time it perfectly, let's say, then you wouldn't have any delay, but it's more likely that you have a slight delay between this information, yes. Well, it seems like you're the only one using Prometheus. Are there any other exporters you're using, by the way?
I use the SNMP exporter, but that's nothing you want to use. It's really, really slow. And I tried the black box exporter. So honestly, it's an instance to play around with it, get familiar with it, use it with automation to add systems to it via Ansible, and doing the same systems in Checkmk. So it's not a real production system, but yeah, it works very, very smooth, I have to say.
You mean the black box exporter?
All exporters besides SNMP.
Okay. How come? Do you know by any chance why with the SNMP?
I think it's because of the SNMP protocol itself.
Okay, because yes, you go through all the MIPS and everything. Okay. Okay.
Marius is also using it, but I think his dog is in the background, so he doesn't want to speak.
Sorry, the dog has quieted down, but so I'm not sure whether we're either using Prometheus right or not, but we used it to monitor a public cloud system, and we have applications that are custom and they're being scraped, and we can see them and query for them within Prometheus. Are those going to be available to us? They're non-standard, so they're scraping things such as error rates and latencies and stuff like that.
So could you give maybe a specific example, maybe with the latency I understood, but are you referring to a specific exporter here?
So maybe my terminology is off, but we're using the Prometheus interface that you showed us in your other tab, and
Yes.
there we're able to search, for example, for the error rates on one of our web servers.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay,
about
so it's basically you using, for example, one of the exporters, and then you get
Exactly.
information about the latency. Yes.
So we could.
Mhm.
Is there a one-to-one mapping from the selection that you had in the Prometheus data source configuration?
So basically, how we proceeded is we try to include the top, as in the most popular exporters in the beginning, which is mostly Kubernetes related. But
Okay.
obviously, we know that there are so many. So I think now there should be more than 160 exporters. I think, probably more even. But basically, we decided on, let's just have the most relevant ones in the beginning, which is obviously the sealed browser is quite important, and the node exporter as well, even though it's quite similar to what our Checkmk agent is doing at the moment. But obviously, we are open to include third exporters in the future. So basically, what we did with this feature pack is lay the foundation to simplify all this work which you need to get to process the information from the Prometheus API and pass it on to our Checkmk check plugins. But now, since we have once we get enough testing with the feature pack, and hopefully it should be fine. But once we've done this kind of, let's say, testing stage, and it works fine with the popular exporters, we'll be open to include third exporters in the future. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but can't Marius just run a promkill query the same as he does in Prometheus anyway? I mean, he's writing promkill queries in Prometheus to get the data, and I think he can do the same now here as well.
Yes. So for now, there's kind of like a workaround. Obviously, if you know well what your Prometheus instance does, you could, for example, go here and then specify your own promkill queries. So basically what's happening here is you generate your own Checkmk service, which is based upon queried results from the Prometheus API. So for example, if I'm interested in the processes happening, and then I give it the name running for the running processes, and then enter the relevant
I think this
prompt.
is what I was looking for.
So if your export in the beginning is not yet covered by us, basically, so if it's not in here, you get the option to specify your own queries. You can still monitor them within Checkmk. So if we also say the block one.
Do you have plans to allow multi-values
Yes.
being returned from a PromQL query?
Yes,
Yes,
that's a good question. Because at the moment, the multi one is a bit tricky, because there's obviously a risk if you allow multi queries that you run into the problem where you get just too many metrics from Prometheus into Checkmk. That's something we want to avoid at the moment, because Prometheus there's a chance. I think an average Prometheus instance, it's normal that you have more than, let's say, 8,000 metrics, raw metrics, right? I'm talking about raw metrics.
Yeah.
So that's something we want to we don't want to have, because it's not going to give you any more insight having just 8,000 more metrics. But there are definitely use cases. So for example, if it's just the temperature one, for example, would be a good example where you just want to query something about temperature and would just organize them into different zones, for example. But there are definitely use cases, and we'll be working on that. Another thing which is missing at the moment is the thresholds, that you can't specify thresholds for the custom queries. But this is something which will also come. But this is also, which needs to be like, let's say, harmonized with the multi-query ones. So let's specify this here. And then you can see here that we have a new undiscovered service. And then you can see here. And then let's add this to our system, to our host. And then, yes, voila. Here you can see the Checkmk service you basically generated from your Prometheus queried values. So which consists of, this is one queried value, and then the label, and this is the second one.
Is it possible to get performance data attached as well
As in,
in order to get the graphs?
yes. Yes, I didn't do it in this example, but if we go back, so there's this option box here, basically.
Okay.
If you go here, these are all the graphs which were implemented by us. So they're different titles. So for example, I don't know the specific one for the processes yet, but there's let's say there's a suitable title you can find within this drop-down list. So as you can see, some of them are doubled, but this will be improved in a so this will be improved in the 1.7, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, you can choose your graph here, and then it will pass you data based on this selected one. Yes.
Thanks.
One check, do you really need there to specify that name for performance data to be valid?
So basically, are you saying you want to specify your own title?
No, but at least make it like the local checks where you just give any name and then we make a graph with the metric name instead of a specific unit.
So that at the moment it's not possible to do that. But I know where you're coming from, because the advantage with this one will be obviously that you have the correct units shown for the relevant graph. But for some cases, you always want to tune it for yourself. So are you saying that we should have both options, or just have one option? Do you think, yeah, this one, for example, is not relevant at all?
I mean, I would say if this is not specified, then it goes the path of the local check. And when it is specified, then you take the advantage of the implemented metric system. Because, for example, if you don't tick that box, what do you get from the service view?
If I don't tick this box.
Exactly. If you don't.
So then you don't have then it's not nothing.
You only have the check output.
Yes. You only have the check output. But obviously the graphs are more relevant, I guess, for everyone who's monitoring.
But and even if you don't collect the metric, the performance data, you do get the check part that you can compare against a threshold?
At the moment, it's not for you. It's not possible for you to have any thresholds.
Okay.
Because of the future implementation of the multi-return values. So because because if we decide now that we are going to allow like thresholds for these single values, let's say, then everything is fine. Then once we decide to further improve upon this functionality in terms of allowing multi values, these thresholds are going to become more complicated because some values are this, because for example, if you just go in here, I can try to find one suitable metric, for example. Am I looking now? I'll be probably more lucky here. So this would be, for example, one example. Even though you've just specified one metric, it just returns you a lot of different values which are relevant to this one, but all of them mean something different. So as you can see here, for example, is core, byte. And then if you specify thresholds for all of these, then you need to do a lot of checkups in the first place. And then plus you have to trust the user as well that he inputs something, which really means it's all of these results mean or have the same meaning. And so we need to find the right balance between these two aspects. Yes. So it's
okay. Yeah.
So it's
I see why it's complicated.
It's not, and that's just one example. So for example, some other metrics they're similar to the histogram to a histogram graphic. So basically, but he still lists them just as buckets, or they're just listed as sub results from this query. Or in Prometheus, you also don't have a true or false, but they're also just listed as values, as 0 and 1s in here. So there's so many types, so there's so many different types of results which are returned within Prometheus. So it's not very easy to just say, oh, we can specify this threshold for this one, even though it doesn't have anything to do with. So there's no general threshold, let's say. Okay.
Okay.
Any further questions? Anyone?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Can you please go back to the Prometheus cube screen?
This one?
Yes. If I create my own PromQL service,
yes,
and I want to have cube pod container resource requests for one specific pod and one specific resource.
yes.
For example, is this possible today? Because that would be a single request. So that's.
So for example, you mean, let's say I want to take this one, for example, just as an example.
And just copy resource CPU for this example.
So this already allows you to then set this one, right? And then you could take this, for example.
Great.
And then go in here. There was the Kubernetes one, yes. And then you would go in here, specify, let's say it's a container resource. Yeah, it's container. resource, and then maybe give it CPU, just as an example, and then you could just copy paste this query. It's already very specific. So you could also, for example, allocate it to a specific host which you might already have. I'm just going to take an example, which would be, let's just give it this one, for example. And then you could specify it in here. So this might not be the most convenient one for some of the users. So basically for the C advisor, you can select different options as in how you want your piggyback host to be stored, or like the name you want to have. So you can, for example, also use the full Docker container ID, which would be very long, or you can also use the container's name just in itself. So which might be easier for some people. And then obviously you also have to, this is something I forgot to mention earlier, but you can specify on at what level you want to have the information. So at the moment we chose the containers because C advisor is more relevant in terms of what's happening below the pod level. But obviously you can also choose the pod level to just have pod piggyback host basically. And then you could save this. Yes. Oh yes, because the information is coming from here. Now if we go back. Yes, and then if we go in here. So because your prom demo is the one which is basically getting all the information for all the different piggyback hosts. So this is basically the parent host for all the other hosts. And then if we go back,
Activate your changes.
activate my changes. And then, yes, you have here the result, which should be the same as in here. So it is. So this will be another example where you just specify one very specific query. And then again, for example, here will be also, so for example, with regards to the multi questions, this would be, for example, also an interesting result where you just query about the CPU, resource CPU, and then it would automatically allocate these information based on the pod label. So they're different. So it's not just one complexity level where you just go horizontally and try to figure out the information, but it also can go, as you can see, it's vertically as well in terms of like, oh, this resource might be relevant or another one. So there are different things we need to consider before we can say, oh, let's just implement it in this specific way. Yes, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Any further questions, anyone?
I think that's it, isn't it?
I think, if anyone has or remembers anything, wants to ask anything, just pop in your question anytime.
Right. And also let me just, oh, right. Yeah, Marius, you're muted. So let me just also paste the documentation for Prometheus integration. So, oopsie.
Maybe.
Pasted it wrong. Right. So you can check it out. We have our documentation there if you have anything, if you want to read through it more. And of course, you can ask in the forum as well once you have tried it out. Um, our mm, we have a topic on the forum about trying out the feature pack 2. So if you haven't done so, you still have time, but it will be released soon as well. Mhm. I think we can now. Do you have anything else that you want to ask about the feature pack, Prometheus? Good. Okay, so I think we can talk about now about the previous conference. So who were in the conference around here? Oh yeah, of course, Tribe 29 is there. So I'm trying to see if there is anyone. Okay. All right, don't worry. So we will um for those who weren't there, we will talk about how it happened and what are the results. And we're fortunate because I think majority of the conference organizers are here, isn't it? So yeah, I can see um, the shocked faces of the people who will have to relieve what happened in the conference. Right. So for those who weren't there, so you might have heard that we have to suddenly turn the usually physical conference into a virtual one. And so we had to only do that um, within a month. So those our organizer colleagues here, please jump in. Feel free to jump in. We're chill here. So to fill more details, so we had to organize first sending out the swag pack. So if you are part of a conference, we hope you receive a swag pack, a gift pack for the conference. And then we also had to figure out which tool that we have to use and of course set up our very professional setup. So it was Christian here who set that all up. If you're so amazed, if you really like our beautiful professional studio setup for the conference, it was all his work. And I'm pretty maybe next time for the next community call, he will also do the same for us. We will also have a professional studio. Yeah, but then we don't want to give him more tasks. But then if there is popular demand, yeah, there will be a professional studio for our community calls as well. Right. Okay. I'm just reading something in the chat. Okay. Right. No, it is not out yet. Martin, do you want to answer this question verbally?
Yes, I can maybe, because like we were talking about the feature pack. So maybe first, like what is inside this feature pack before we go back to the conference? I mean, basically the biggest thing is I think the Prometheus integration we spoke about. The rest of the things are basically just check plugins. And when does it finally come? So we planned it for today. And we did some testing on it today. And that's why if you looked into the archive, you might have actually seen it. We took it out again because we found a bug and fixed the bug then. And so basically did some more fixing around it, and it's currently in the build and it will come around midnight. And so you can expect the P12 with all these things to be there. Yeah, let's say probably in 3 hours. And yeah, then you can try it out. And everything else that you downloaded until now, don't try to use it, please. Anything else you want to know? Yeah, P12, I think yes, because the daily build already has a build. The daily build of 1.6 already has something for Ubuntu 20.4, and then the P12 should also have that.
So any more questions?
Maybe we can ask what everyone thinks of this feature pack integration, because it's now our second one. Or is that too?
That's a totally fine question.
Yeah, I think so too.
I see Andrea smiling about that, hearing that. Do you have anything to say, Andreas?
No, it's only one thing. Yet last thing with VPN plugin for the Cisco, where we had a little bit discussion about if it should be removed or not, and that it's not possible for in 1 or 2 days to rework the complete plugin. That it's clear, but normally I would then find it better if we say this plugin is not included inside the feature pack and removed completely. As now you have the situation, you install the feature pack, you use, I say, the Cisco VPN plugin, and then in 2 months you get then the better reworked version, and you have rework your complete checks and rules, as all the namings are different and the conventions are also a little bit different, what you get back as results of the checks and so on. That's I think that's more why I was smiling, as I think it's better than if one point is not the optimal solution, or so, that we say it's not released included this one plugin. So all the other things are okay. There I see no problems or anything like that. That's only one small part of the feature pack.
Okay, I think someone is raising their hand. Trolls?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was just commenting on the feature pack that personally I don't think I'll be using it. If there's something I badly need that's not yet in, I think I would probably go for an MKP package instead that is more focused, and else wait till the features are in the main version. But that's just me.
But they are in the main version basically, so they are in the stable, and they come as MKPs in the stable.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah, the way that you activate them is inside of your installation. You go to the extension packages, and there you can just choose which one to activate. By default, they are all deactivated when you install the P12, and you just click on the plug button, and then it will be there. So it is virtually an MKP, but it's just a convenience thing that we deliver it with the P12.
Okay.
And it should then, when the 1.7, for example, comes out, and when you update to the 1.7, it should get replaced. And that's a nice thing, because if you, for example, install an MKP, and then the MKP is kind of conflicting, I think, with a new thing in the 1.7, for example, then you have to fix that somehow. And I think that's a mechanism which we built in so that this is being taken care of. I hope I say the right thing. Yeah.
Yes, we actually developers prayed for that feature. Because it always happens that we have a customer reporting a bug, and like the first thing we have to check is like, what MKPs do you have installed? Oh, you should deinstall those old MKPs. So we managed to build a MKP with control of maximum allowed version, and then we can filter MKPs that are obsolete because the stable version now includes that feature.
Actually, I'm seeing also a question in the in the YouTube chat, and I can actually probably even answer that. Someone asks if we can downgrade, or if we can downgrade from 1.6 to 1.5 by using the virtual appliance. In general, don't downgrade. And that's one of the things I would always advise. Don't downgrade. I think we even specifically say don't downgrade from the 1.6 to the 1.5.
Still actually an interesting question. Why would you want to downgrade?
If the 1.6 doesn't work for you the way you want it to work, then you might want to downgrade.
But as in, like, we now have more than, well, it's already P12, so we have 11 other versions which are before that.
Yeah, so by now it you shouldn't want to do that, but I mean.
So there must be like a big bug or something which has been throughout all the different patches.
Suti, you can also say why you want to do that, and then maybe we can understand it better.
Understand.
So shall I go into conference a little bit as well, or like shall we go back to the conference topic?
Yeah, I think there are no more questions, but we can always go back again
Okay.
this topic.
I didn't want to steal the word from you. You can continue, Faye, with the conference.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, we were just talking about how we came into doing an online conference. So the turnout was, I think we have almost 300 participants online at the same time, wasn't it? So yeah, Martin was one of the admins, Christian was one of the admins as well. So I think he can see that, see those statistics. And what was great was the reason why we are doing this community call was like we had this idea to do the evening sessions, which turned out really great. And that was surprising for us. For me at least, it was surprising because we didn't expect that it will actually be a hit. I mean, a hit. But it was, there was such good reception on that kind of socialization. So I think we can do that more often, maybe in the form of more community calls, or maybe in a different format. So if you have any suggestion on how we can do more kind of community socializing online, because we cannot do physical events right now anyway, so feel free to let us know. You can just leave it here, or comment on the document. So I think we can proceed about on talking about the Checkmk roadmap, or or does anyone have any conference experience that they want to share? Those who were in the conference, what did you think about that experience?
It was great.
Thanks for participating, Martin. Everyone's so quiet right now. Yeah, okay. I think silence means it's super great. I'm speechless. I think that's what it means. Right. Yeah. But I think it was awesome that we somehow, I mean, at least based on the feedback that we have received so far, like we somehow managed to imitate the feel of physical conference as much as possible in a virtual one. So if you have any questions, if you want to know the tools that we use, so we can send you a private message later. Yeah, but then, oh, by the way, we still have Whereby accounts that we wanted to share with other online communities. So it's still valid until this week. So if we have online communities that wanted to want to do a small online meetup, so just let me know and I can give you one of our meeting rooms there. So right. So Martin, do you think we can talk about the Checkmk roadmap now?
So yes, I can. So I just wanted to share with you guys the votes from the roadmap, and they're actually quite important for us. So when we think about, hey, what are the next things we want to develop in Checkmk, we always take a look very closely at what people voted at the conference for. And typically we always had like big votes where people could put stickers on and put notes on. And right on this year, we just used basically Slack and had some voting in Slack, and had everyone vote on what they actually really wanted and to see in the Checkmk 1.8 version. So not 1.7, but 1.8, the version which comes out next year. And I'm going to share a little bit with you basically how people voted, or what actually were results of some of the votes we did in during the conference. So I'm going to share my screen. So actually, I'm going to share full screen because then you will see everything. So, oh wait, there's a presentation mode. Can you see it full screen? No.
Yes.
Okay, great. So two things which I want to share first is basically what were the results from the polls which we did, and then share a little bit how did people actually perceive the conference who participated in it. And I think that's something as a learning for everyone else who wants to do a virtual conference on things to do and things probably not to do. The first thing we asked in one of in the polls was, what were the major improvements in Checkmk 1.6? Because obviously to us it's interesting, what did you actually really like? Because I mean, we do a lot of things, and we somehow would like to know as well, okay, what are actually things which you liked? And I think quite surprisingly, to me at least, Windows monitoring got 51 votes, which because basically it was not a new feature. Windows monitoring was also there before, but it was a rework of the Windows agent. Yeah? And that seemed to have still hit for a lot of people. And then another thing, the dynamic configuration. So basically being able to dynamically add hosts to your monitoring and manage your hosts. That was actually also got quite a lot of votes. And if I remember, for example, our roadmap polls in the last years at the last conference, this never got a lot of votes because people always, I think, didn't understand what we actually wanted to build there. And now that it was there, then in What 6, a lot of people realized, hey, it's actually quite powerful and can be used to a wide degree. Then you can see the rest of the things, will not go into much detail for that. Personally, I'm happy that the dark theme has a lot of votes because I worked on that. So that's cool. Then here, features and improvements. So this was a little bit how we structured it. So we did in total, I think, 12 or 13 polls, and they all relate to this in over structure how we think. So we say basically there are features or improvements to Checkmk, and then there's the whole segment on monitoring areas where we say basically it's check plugins. And we wanted to know for features and improvements, what are new things that you like? Then among the existing Checkmk features, where should we focus on? What are things around the user interface, around integrations, around security and performance which you like? And I will go into that now. So for new things, and I took out all the things which didn't get like enough votes. So for example, I excluded everything below 5 votes because otherwise it's gonna clutter the entire thing. And when we asked what are the new things which you like to see in Checkmk in a future version, was actually quite clear for most of you or among the votes. It was everything around dependency detection, around anomaly detection, so making Checkmk more intelligent and bringing some more analytics into Checkmk and some more intelligence into it. And the good thing is that was on our plan anyway. So we want to do that anyway. So there's gonna highly likely you will see something in 1.8, which will hopefully make you happy in that regard. The end-to-end monitoring, which is also good. The Checkmk app. Always I hear people who want a Checkmk app. If I compare it to what the others, like if you compare it to the other things, it gets votes, but I think when we have to decide what do we want to do, we probably will rather work on dependency detection instead of working on a Checkmk app. So the other thing is, we always want to know among existing features, where should we actually focus on to develop them further? And I think it's two clear winners, the reporting and the BI. Good thing is Oscar is here, who is working on the reporting and the BI. And I think for the BI, there's, I think, a clear thing, and you will see in the next question what actually has to be improved there. So we see reporting and BI are basically the two big things. And the good thing is that's probably something of the things we all already wanted to work on anyway. So it kind of matches with what we want to do. And if we ask then, because like if you just ask, okay, what should we work on, and people say BI and reporting, it's always obviously what actually should we improve. And so therefore we asked, so what are concrete things which we should improve? And for BI, right now, the configuration of BI is a little bit complicated, I would say. And a drag and drop functionality for the BI is something which a lot of people asked for. And the second thing, service dependency, which you see here, is very closely related with the dependency detection. It's basically if the Apache is down, or if, for example, a host is down, you don't want to get alerts for the things below it. Or if, for example, the Apache is down, you don't want to get an alert for the HTTP check. Yeah, a concept which is well known from Nagios. And which for some reasons has never been made it into Checkmk. But I think for 1.8, you will finally see that. So user interface. So what are the things we should focus on the user interface? I mean, it's one of the big things we will work for the 1.7 on. So it's Matthias's big project, and we will do a lot of things. And so it's helpful to see what you already want, so we can already work on these things for the 1.7, and everything which we can't do there, we can do them for the 1.8. And I think usability, overall usability, but also dashboard usability are the two big things. And new dashlets and vSphere dashboard. I think that's actually for us quite nice, because we always wondered which kind of dashboards should we do, which are really interesting dashboards for you guys, and the clear winner is vSphere. And I think that's something we can do. Integrations. So which tool should we integrate natively with Clear Winner, Ansible? Actually, there were like 30 different options which were created, and a lot of them only really received like 1 or 2 votes. So all of them are out for this view. We still have them obviously for ourselves, and the clear winner is Ansible, and we already did some stuff on Ansible, and we also asked what actually people want. And I think one of the big things was somehow to be able to use the files the agent bakery creates, to use them and integrate them into rollout with Ansible. That's at least how I understood it. And so I think we will take a look at that, obviously. Then security. Which security features should be added to Checkmk? And that's actually quite cool, because we didn't add that ourselves. So some of the options to vote on we add, for example, two-factor authentication, we added ourselves. But the thing which got this the most votes by far was single sign-on. And so we didn't have that on our radar. So, and I think you guys put it on our radar to do for Checkmk 1.8. And I think we will definitely consider that then for 1.8. Performance-wise, so what are really things where we should improve Checkmk performance-wise? 2 clear winners, activate changes in service discovery. And yeah, I think, as you will see later, performance is something which people really want us to work further on. And you thankfully also told us with this where we should work on the things. So the next area is everything around the monitoring area, so the check plugins. So we always want to know, hey, we already have now, I think, 1,900 check plugins. What else should we actually now monitor? Because we always feel, okay, I mean, what is the next thing for us to monitor, and or where should we extend the monitoring? And a lot of votes around applications. So Postgres, Nextcloud, some further Java monitoring and SAP monitoring. Prometheus, hopefully people are happy now. For cloud and containers, keep in mind these they are not to scale here. For example, here you see 20 votes on OpenShift. If you compare it to Postgres, that's 37 votes. So you have to keep that kind of in mind. So I will try to remind, at least say that while we look at these things. So while it looks like there are a lot of votes, 20 votes itself are okayish number of votes. It's not too many if you compare it to the votes in applications. Yeah. So there, I think the big message I would take with me is that no non-AWS service made it in here. 2 Azure services made it in here. Not too much Google Cloud services made it in. So for one thing, I would take for myself that the AWS monitoring we have at the moment is sufficient for most of you guys. The Azure monitoring needs some more services, but especially we should look into OpenShift and OpenStack. But always compare it, like 20 votes for OpenShift versus 37 for Postgres. So we will keep that in mind when we look into the next things. So always,
Martin,
yes.
Martin, just you had Proxmox on 2 slides, and if I add them, it got 20 votes.
Yeah, good thing is there's going to be some Proxmox checks because we use Proxmox ourselves, so we have the need ourselves to do some Proxmox monitoring. So there's
Yeah,
gonna
I
come
already
something.
saw the works. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. So Alex is also pushing very hard for Proxmox monitoring, so that's why we have some.
Martin, one small thing, what you said before for the monitor, for the BI, there would be a good part what's also discussed in the forum the last weeks or months, logical operations. As it's a moment, it's not possible that you have something like that, an XOR or anything like that, that you say one service must run on one host, but not on the other, and things like that. And you have more systems at the moment where you need such constructs to make a good BI, that you have logical operations.
Yeah, that's a good point. Makes sense.
Yeah, exclusive order or not, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. So, I mean, the BI is a big thing to work on. So as soon as we start working on the BI, we definitely have to reach out to everyone and get some feedback on what exactly to work on. But it's a big topic. So BI is not easy to change. BI is not easy to build a new way how to build BI, to build a BI aggregation. So will require some work from our side. So next area here on the monitoring areas, operating systems and virtualization platforms. And so not a lot of things were added here. And the ones I put KVM actually already there because I saw it in one of the roadmap polls in the last years. And this year it got actually quite a lot of votes. So something for us to consider, obviously. Network monitoring, how should we extend it? Always a question because we see there's a lot of need in there among our user base, and it's quite close to what we are doing already. And so actually it's not checks which you see in here, it's rather more extending the network monitoring of Checkmk. And the two big topics, network topology discovery and extending the visualization of network topologies. And I think that's something which, if you have seen the conference presentation from Lars, that's something which we have on our plan, on our internal plan as well. So that matches quite well. So this actually emphasizes that this is the right thing for us to do, to work on these two topics. Then here, what else to monitor around hardware, around server, around storage systems. And here, two things with 31 and 30 volts, NetApp, Dell EMC. So I mean, that's pretty broad because there's a lot of NetApp and Dell EMC monitoring already. So if there's anyone who can specify a little bit more what should be added there, I'm always happy to hear because I mean, for us, it's always unclear, okay, I mean, we have some Dell EMC monitoring, what else to monitor in there? So feel free to jump in and explain a bit about that or write about that in the forum to us. We'll actually add a post about that as well in the future so that we can discuss this in detail in the forum as well. So now we have seen all these things and all these questions and all these different things. And you can see there were a lot of votes on different topics. And now the question is actually, among all these topics, where should we actually focus on? Because for us, we kind of have to make some decisions on, hey, what is more important? And clear winner here is the user interface and performance. And the new things with dependency detection. So these are the things we are already working on. So there will be some good performance improvements, definitely already for the 1.7. And we will definitely take this further with the 1.8. The user interface is, as said, one of the big topics we are already working on in the 1.7, but what we will do for the 1.7 will be far from over. I think there will be many other things which we can do as well. So that gives us a little bit of a prioritization. But I'm always, when I also look what are the things which not a lot of people voted on. So improving existing Checkmk features, or more monitoring for operating systems and virtualization didn't get a lot of votes on in comparison. So basically, when you had to, when you guys had to prioritize things, actually you prioritized these things in the top, but improving existing Checkmk features was not a big thing, which kind of contradicts the thing with the BI. Yeah, we will somehow have to navigate with this response from your side. So these are the votes which we did on the roadmap. I open the floor for everyone just to chime in and ask things or comment it. Anyone still here?
Yeah, I would also say, like Troels, that improving existing features is more important than the new ones, as at the moment you have very special checks or anything like that missing. That's not a, that is common checks or common device types are missing inside the complete systems. You have such a 98% coverage of system types, and it's only 2% what you then cover with new features also. The improving of the existing things like performance for generating config and so on, that's in big environments or in bigger environments, that's the more important things. Or the agent bakery problems, what you have at the moment, that when you bake agents for some 100 different hosts, then you get many error messages every time as such like new agent available but not signed. You cannot change it, as you have to wait for half an hour until the bakery is finished, and so on.
Truls, I hope I.
Yeah, I'm more thinking about docs. I have personally sent code in that has never been applied, and I have a colleague who, for example, has an open pull request in your GitHub, and I believe there are quite a few open pull requests. So I think the little details that could make things work better of what is already there would be a huge win. But can I ask about do you know what people mean when they say they want more Ansible integration? Because I don't know what I mean by it, but I'm not sure what. Do you have any idea what people mean by that?
Yes. So we actually asked that, and one of that was host management. So I think of adding let me quickly stop the sharing and look into it, because we asked that, and then I can give a concrete answer to you. So just a second. So we asked how should an Ansible integration look like? And the two things most people voted on were Ansible module for downloading, installing, registering agents from the bakery, and managing downtimes.
Okay.
And there's another one, managing hosts, like adding, modifying, deleting them.
So when you use Ansible to for example, set up a new host, you can do something to have it automatically integrated into Checkmk.
Yeah, so basically you add the agent via Ansible, and then then it's automatically added to Checkmk by an API call or whatever, and then service activation. Yeah.
I can say I really miss to be able to simply install the agent from the EPEL package management package collection. So in Ansible, you can just write one line, and because I don't really use the agent bakery, so I miss being able to, because for Red Hat 8, this EPEL package collection doesn't include Checkmk anymore, unfortunately. So that would make it easier for my Ansible cookbooks. But those things that you mentioned were also good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think working more with upstream would be probably something we need to take a look at. We've always discussed it internally. I mean, there's always the issue that we somehow have to make sure that the latest Checkmk agent is there and stuff. So I'm obviously going to ask again Lars, our head of development, if there's something which we can do for the 1.8 around that, or in the future to get back that you can just install the Checkmk agent via one of the repositories.
Yeah, and then also govern which of the agent plugins are activated. For example, via symlinks between maybe from some directory into an etc subdirectory, something like that, so you can easily put in something to your Ansible playbook to have a particular plugin to the agent activated.
Yeah, good. I think my colleague informed me that there are some questions on YouTube. Oh. Faye, or if someone can actually like kind of ask me these questions, because otherwise
Right.
I'm just scrolling around.
Right. Yeah. I think we can tackle these questions after discussion about the roadmap.
Okay. So, anything else around the roadmap? Was it helpful for you guys to see how people voted at the conference? Cool. I'm gonna share quickly a little bit around because I see that's the next agenda topic is the survey results. So from our conference, because everyone who does a virtual conference, I think might be helpful to understand a bit what people actually liked and what they didn't like. And I think should be good if we shared it in here. So I'm gonna share my screen again. So I'm gonna do that a little bit more quicker. It's also a little bit easier. So I can jump over it. So I see most people said it's fine. Yeah, it's good. I think more interesting is what did actually people like about the event. And I actually I tried to, we had free text answers. So it's not like you can say 10 people like the vibe or whatever, but I kind of looked through all of them, and the general feeling was that the vibe of the event was actually quite nice. So they really liked how it felt. Technical implementation. I will go into detail for that later. How the presentations and the speakers did it, the interaction options, and that was something which we really tried to push for this conference, because we felt like if we do just another Zoom session, this will be pretty boring, yeah, and this will be basically no value add than if you just watch the videos on YouTube later on, yeah. So we tried to do a lot of interaction options around it, and seemed that people actually like that, which is good, and which is something I can recommend to everyone who does a virtual conference. And then our organization, which might have looked to you very professional, for us it was very stressful and hectic because we had to do a lot of last minute changes. So I'm happy that it didn't feel that way. So I have some quotes here. I think as you don't know who actually wrote them, I think it should be fine to actually say, like, I would just jump over them. So the upvoting system, and this was actually pretty cool. So you had the chance in the chat to ask questions, and then people could upvote the questions of others. And then in the Q&A sessions, we looked at the things which were the most relevant for the majority and answered them. And that was actually quite helpful, and which was helpful for us, but also helpful to you. And we heard that quite often. Yeah. So an upvoting system is very helpful for Q&A. Yeah. And we had different tools in set. Decided to have Slack and Bigmarker and Thereby. Bigmarker was the conference tool. There's a special, basically, feature set of that which we used, and Slack as the communication tool for chatting, yeah, and doing the roadmap polls. And Thereby was for one-on-ones and for the evening session with Marcellus to drink beer. Some further things what people liked. So I just picked some quotes here, and so we had this Q&A session slots, and people were actually quite mixed. So a lot of people said it's really nice to have this Q&A session afterwards. So that you basically had to choose, do I want to go to a Q&A session, or do I want to participate in the next conference talk? So we had basically two like talks sometimes at the same time, and yeah, some people actually really liked that. That's also something people didn't like. Yeah, the Ask Me Anything sessions, so the Kamin sessions, so the fireside chats. And the fireside chats we will actually repeat. So Matthias is a big fan of doing that. So we'll definitely have some as soon as we have set up our studio again. We will have a fireside chat where you can drink together beer with Matthias and with Jan and Lars. Let's see who participates. But yeah. And that you can actually participate quite a lot. And we heard that very often that it's actually easier to in the virtual environment to post your questions, to ask, and that's something we can actually take towards next conference, which will hopefully be physical again, to somehow enable people to ask their question virtually as well, and then we just collect them, because obviously you do not like to speak in front of 300 people in a conference hall and have the mic. So that's actually kind of good to know. What people didn't like about the event? So the Q&A overlapping, yeah, and I think this combined with that the Q&As and the Ask Me Anything sessions, which were not recorded, yeah. So there was some technical things why we didn't do that. So for the next thing, whenever we do that again like that, then we will definitely consider that. And also having like many parallel events, yeah, in the evening. We will also, like, if we ever do that again in this way, then we'll also think about that. So you always have the difficulty. People would like to participate in everything, obviously. Then I think for our English speakers, and I can feel you there. So we have majority of participants are Germans, yeah. So it does feel, for if you're not a native German speaker, it doesn't feel like it's an event tailored towards non-German speaking audiences. And the good thing is with these virtual conferences, we can actually do an English conference in the future. And so we can actually really think about a small conference, which is only in English, which is virtual, and which kind of also addresses people who live in the US. I know one of the guys who participated, I mean, he had to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. in the morning to participate. So the good thing is we learned that a virtual conference can work. And we had live translations. Some people really liked it. Some had difficulties with it. And so we will take that into consideration. Then some more questions. How was it organized? I think people said it was pretty good organized, helpful the staff. I think these are just like, I will just jump over it because this is the one which might be helpful. So we sent out most information 1 week before the event. And my feeling is, for most it was fine, but for some people expected to have some information a little bit earlier. And for everyone who does a virtual conference, try to send it out as soon as possible. Even it might be more difficult in the moment because like changing from a physical to a virtual conference has some difficulties. Rather over communicate than under communicate. Length, so we had 2 days, and that's just about right. And that's good to know. So 1 day is obviously too short, 2 days is right, 3 days probably too long. Then what is most relevant? And there I think it needs a little bit of interpretation of that, because if you look into that, if you feel like, hey, my talk is in the very bottom of that, what does it mean to me? I think what we see is always that things which are very general apply to a lot of people, are interested to a lot of people. So obviously newest developments and the Checkmk roadmap are the most interesting topics for everyone, most relevant because it addresses everyone. If you have a very specific use case or a very specific thing which we talk about, then it's obviously less relevant for you. So if you take, for example, Oracle and Azure, and we have Andreas in here who did the Azure monitoring talk, which I think was pretty great. Same for Prometheus, which got 39% relevancy. If it's a new technology or if it's something which is very specific, then obviously it will not be as relevant to everyone. However, I mean, some people just voted like for 2 things in the vote, so obviously there is going to be a difference. Still, I take it that a third of the people said, hey, it was super relevant to them, and that's something which still says, hey, makes sense. Yeah. So what I take here especially is the check API, because that's super specific, and we always thought, hey, it's so developer focused, the check API, that it should not be too interesting to a lot of people, and that actually 83% of participants said, hey, it's very relevant, was a little bit surprising to us. And the same for the REST API, which was quite still quite relevant to a lot of people, which goes into very internals of Checkmk, obviously. So it's kind of interesting to see that these 2 topics are relevant to a lot of people. Yeah. Then interaction opportunities. I think room for improvement. I mean, a lot of people liked it, but I see there's still some room of improvement for us there. What should we have in the future in a conference? I think Q&A is definitely one of the big topics. More workshops. So we wanted to do some workshops this year for the physical conference. Workshops are the one big thing which people want, or hands-on demos, and we will try to do something around that in the future as well. I already asked Alex Wilms if he wants to do a best practice workshop, virtual even, and he already said he would like to do that. Then big question, how should we do the next conference? Physical, virtual, physical or virtual? I think the big answer is please do it physical again, and we will try to do that. Then what kind of sessions, what do people like to hear? What should we try to do? I think it's a lot around use cases, which you can see here, to show some use case, for example, around end-to-end monitoring, and workshops, best practices. Like if you go through that, doing best practices seems to be one of the big topics. Always difficult because a best practice might apply for one use case or for one specific situation, but might be completely wrong for another situation. So we have to be always a bit careful with best practices. People always want to have like other people talking about their Checkmk. That's something we will always do. Even and we have to find some that's something. It's always a little bit challenging, but we will do that definitely next year again. So how did people like it? And here, or how would they actually recommend the conference to a colleague, which is always this net promoter score logic, which you have in here. And the results are actually pretty good. And we looked who actually gave, like, for example, 765, and that were mostly English speaking people. So which I completely understand because it's mostly tailored towards the German audience. So I understand that if you are not from Germany and if you are from the US and you have to bear with the time difference, plus that you have to listen to a live translation instead of the native speaker into a native English conference, it's, I think, a clear answer. Last question we had, then I'm finished with it. So what else would you like to share with us about the event, or what? And I think in general, pretty nice things which we said, which we heard here, like the Seitenaufnahme. Yeah, so basically to have a not always like people in the front view, but also sometimes from the side, which we had in our studio, was something which was a lot of effort to do that, actually. So Chris had to spend a lot of time to somehow get that managed, because we had to really build like streams and like manage multiple cameras and stuff. But I think was worth the effort. Best virtual Checkmk conference so far. I totally agree to that. And I think there's a good comment here that we should look more into what people actually are doing in the community. And this is something why we have Faye on board. Community management is something we really want to do more in the future. And so we will definitely listen to that. And it's happy that people say that we're on the right path as a company, and that makes us actually quite happy. That's it.
Hey, Anastasios is giving you claps. So do we have any questions or any reactions about the survey results and the roadmap? I think we're all good. So we also have a forum topic about the roadmap. So you can check it out. So it's in a document, but I will share it here as well if I haven't done so. All right. So we can continue the conversation about this topic as well after this community call. Okay, so I think we have now time to address the questions on YouTube. Okay, so this one is Sudhir's follow-up about downgrading. So he said that it created issues during the migration. And last time he tried it was 1.5 P15 to 1.6 P8. And then to roll back was not that straightforward. And I still see that there is comment not to downgrade while using the virtual appliance. So I think that was his answer when you asked like why would one wants to downgrade. Make sense?
Yeah. Next time you do an upgrade, it seems, I mean, might be that you've done it in a productive environment. So we will release at some point in the next couple of weeks, months, the video around staging environments, how to build your staging environment where you can test your upgrades or how you should test upgrades and stuff, because always recommended. I would recommend to do it like that. And then you see, hey, does it work? Do you want to go to 1.6 or do you not want to go to 1.6 yet? And if you follow that approach, you should not have the problem to have to roll back then afterwards. Yeah, that's my feeling or thoughts.
Okay. So someone also asked, so I think our other colleagues here can help with this one. So Andreas is asking if we have a quick entry for newbies because he needs some extra monitoring information about Win Agent and LSI monitoring. So he found the plugins, but he doesn't have any information from the agent. So he knows that we have a guide, but then he doesn't understand how the agent and Checkmk interact. So can anyone pitch in about that?
I could, but I would hope that someone else pitches in who has more knowledge than I have. Oscar.
I don't
Oscar.
know. I mean, in general, how the agent interacts with the Checkmk. Well, the agent has to be installed in the host, and then Checkmk queries. So in Checkmk, you need to add the host.
Is he referring to an agent plugin, or is it something like a
Yeah,
special agent?
that's also, that might be missing as well. But from what I get, if how is the interaction? Is like I think we have a beginner guide which is quite lengthy, but it goes over the process at least to install the host, and then that you have to add it.
I mean, I always recommend this. It's not everyone knows about it, but there is the very first item in our user guide. Yeah, is the beginner's guide. And while it sounds like a beginner's guide and someone doesn't want to read a beginner's guide, it's actually quite a good guide, and it's quite an extensive guide, which kind of like in a short version goes through how to build up a monitoring, and which also explains, I think, how agents and Checkmk works together, and how what role the agent plugins have, and how that works with the check plugins. And that should be the one which I would recommend for everyone to read. And as Andrea said here in the chat, like how the agents and Checkmk work is definitely a longer talk. So the more specific your question is, the better we can answer it. Yeah.
Right. So I think we can continue that conversation on the forum. So he's saying that the agent is running fine, but LSI controller and JPOD don't give information over LSI controller and Mega CLI and Store CLI.
I think that's more a problem on his system, like the agent plugin is working as LSI information comes from a small plugin script or so. And that's possible that it's on his system don't give the same output as it is expected from the checks. But without code and debug output, it's complicated to give there a proper answer, I think.
It
Right, so-
also sounds like a question you could post in the forum.
Right. I think that
Yes.
would be the best case for this one.
So a lot of people would probably have an answer to this specific. It's a very specific question already.
Mm-hmm.
So someone might already have some experience with it.
It's
Cool.
good that it's specific. So then, I mean, that's quite specific for that. So with
Mm.
some debugging information, should be able to answer that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then let's move to our last topic. So we have here, I think, almost complete marketing team, and we want to talk about writing about Checkmk. So we have here Ferdinand, our PR and technical writer. So he's going to share what we are doing, and if you have any questions on how we do it, or if you have any contributions, so you can talk to him about that.
Cool, thank you. So hello from my side again. Very excited. My first community call with Checkmk, so be tender. As Faye said, there is 2 new people in the marketing department. Timo, who cannot be here tonight, as he has a Babel Noble course. He's training children for football. And myself, sort of writing a bit content and also do more PR outreach. At the conference itself, we had a few journalists joining or so. But one thing we want to do together with you, one major point is actually creating a few case studies. So pretty much telling the public the stories of our customers. Some of you have been already in touch, and we hope that you've seen here now on our homepage a few examples. This can be very beneficial for you as well, because we pretty much write your Checkmk story. So we say, hey, this is what did you do, what challenge did you face, and how did you solve it? It will be, of course, include Checkmk, but it will mainly about the work you did with Checkmk. So tell the public, we kind of put it on our homepage, but it can also help you within your company, within new people, telling them on different levels, depending on your story. We can make it very technical, but we can also make it a bit more high level, saying this was the challenge, this is how we overcome, this was sort of what happened in between, and this is where we are today, and this is where we want to go. I'm actually very excited about doing this because I had a few phone calls to different customers, and I was pretty amazed what people did and sort of take it for granted. Yeah, like a lot of companies, I think, take the great work of their IT department or the developers as well for granted. And it's actually a hell of a story what you guys pulling off over there. It doesn't take much. All it takes actually, you need to tell me, and I'm going to write for you. We have a few standard PDF templates, so to say, that you could just that we can create in the Checkmk layout. We're also working on articles, get you guys into magazines, writing text or something like that. That's also an option. And long term, we have a few other ideas, which we have to sort of do the fine tuning, but would be, for instance, something like video interviews. Some of you already did like a few video statements, video case studies. So we have a lot of really good ideas. First steps already been taken. We often have customers on stage or so it isn't really far off what you're doing over there. We just put it into a different channel. So in a nutshell, if you have the time and if you see a chance to do it, just contact Faye or contact Martin or myself directly. I'm also in the forum. And we just organize a call pretty much. That's all it takes. Yeah.
Right. So I just wanted to add that we also have a section on the agenda document where you can put if you have any idea about which content should we write about, which video should we create next. So for example, Maras mentioned something here about usage of Checkmk with a specific user. So maybe and we can talk more about this on, we can dig deeper into this one. But then feel free to write if you have any more ideas on what we can create. Or if you also want to have a case study for you, so you can also let us know through here.
And it's not limited to language as well. So I've seen there's some people from the Netherlands over here. We mainly had German journalists joining and writing about Checkmk this conference. There was one guy from the Netherlands who wrote a couple of articles, and he actually asked, for instance, for an article from us for his magazine about a virtual conference because he thought it was quite successful. So the offer is not limited to English or German. We are glad about to do it in any other language as well. We just need to think about how we can manage that, but I think we are quite good in that case.
All right. So do we have any questions? Can be also about anything that we talked about today. Right. Okay. I think that's it. We have completed our agenda, and actually we're kind of over time as well. And which is great because we have lots of discussions and conversations right now. So does anyone want to discuss something? Anything else? I think we're good. Right. So I think if we're all sorted, so I think that's the end of our community call. And of course, we can continue talking about all these things in the forum or in the agenda document, and let us know what you think about this community call, if we should continue doing this. Yeah, the shout outs. Good point. So there is a part here on the agenda document, if you haven't seen, where we try to recognize those who are active in the forum. So right now, we have 2 items here. It's a long list. So first, a shout out to our top responders in the forum in this quarter. So that's like starting February. I think a lot of them are here. So like Martin Schwartz, Andres Dula. Who else? Yeah, Anastasios is also here.
Robert is also here.
Yeah, Robert Sanders also here. Thank you so much for always responding and being always there to help our community members. And we also have the
Niloy is
community.
also here, or I don't know how to say that name. You have to say how you pronounce this name.
Yeah, we're curious about this one. How to pronounce your name? Niloy?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can type it how you pronounce your name, but that's fine. So who else is here? Right. Yeah, I think that's everyone there. And we also have the recipients of the Community Ally badge. So that means if you have this badge, that means you have gave 25 solutions to the forum. So you gave a solution and then someone marked it as a solution. Oh, Nilosh is actually Jolene. Yeah, okay, nice to meet you. And finally, we have figured out what it means. Right, so we have 4 people so far was gotten this badge, and it's Tosh. I think Tosh is not here. Carl Deutsch is not here, and Robert Sander and Andres Duller, they're also here. So they have been very active ever since the mailing list time. So thank you so much for being with us always and for always being active. And I think there are a lot of people here whom you might help. So I think this is a good opportunity to like recognize them. Yay!
Don't tell my boss, but it's always on company time. So.
Oh, I don't think that's company time. Right. We don't have any evidence of that. All right. So I think that's it for our community call for real. Yeah. So Martin, do you have anything else?
No, but I would say thank you to you, Faye, because thanks to you, we finally got the first community call going. And I hope if you like it, then we can do that again. And because I think it's quite nice. And I mean, we are trying these things now. And thanks for everyone. Yeah, already.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, then. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening. And if you're having a holiday tomorrow, so enjoy your holiday. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
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 Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.